All right. The question of illegal immigration, deportations of illegal immigrant criminals came up last night on CNN's Abby Phillip Roundtable show. And once again, the host of the show decided to debate with Scott Jennings. Once again, it did not go well for the host.
I don't think anybody disagrees with that. 7 million means that they're not just going after criminals.
Well, they're going after people who are in the country illegally, right?
Yeah, I know, but I'm saying the criminals, this is a much bigger universe.
Doesn't that make you a criminal?
No, it doesn't.
To come across the border illegally?
Coming into the country illegally is a civil offense. It's not a criminal offense.
Okay, if you come into the country illegally, here's the message. We're going to find you and send you back. I mean, I'm sorry, that's the way it is. And I think the government should pull all the levers at its disposal to find people and pull this off. It's what the American people asked Donald Trump to do. Yes, they should be deporting violent people. Yes, they should be deporting people who committed violent acts before they came here. But at some juncture, if you're going to allow any illegal immigration at all, the message then goes out. Just get here. It'll probably work out for you. That was the last administration. This is a different one.
All right. So I want to break apart a couple of these things. Again, Abby Phillip deciding to engage in the debate because she can't trust every single other person on that panel who is lined up to debate Scott Jennings. They all fail. So, of course, the host who controls the show gets to make the debate points. This whole it's not a criminal offense is a civil offense. Let's dissect this for a minute. First of all, it only depends on which administration is enforcing the law and in how robustly they enforce the law. It is a violation of federal law. Period. You violate federal law, you are a criminal. Now, the question is how severe that criminal offense is. Let me give you an example. And this is a really good example when it comes to illegal immigration and entering the country illegally. Because as you know, people come into the country illegally, they evade arrest. If they are confronted or encountered by a Border Patrol agent during the Biden administration, they would make a false claim of asylum. And that's right, 98% of these claims for asylum are false claims for asylum. Right now, we have certain protocols whereupon you can claim asylum status. If you're a political refugee, if you're a religiously persecuted refugee, or if you are in direct fear for your life. Or the fourth one is if your country has undergone some sort of natural disaster, like an earthquake or a volcano or a tsunami or something like that. The vast majority of the people coming to this country illegally, we all know, are coming here for economic purposes. In fact, liberals admit it all the time. They just want a better life. They just want a job. They just want to be able to feed their family. Okay, that's fine, but that doesn't make them refugees. It doesn't make them legitimate asylum seekers. So if you're coming to this country to get a job and to make more money for your family so you can have a better life, but you tell a Border Patrol agent that you're seeking political or religious asylum, you're lying. That's another offense. Okay? So they're making false claims of asylum. Then they're allowed into the country temporarily. Can we resonate on the word temporary for a second? Temporary, by definition, means it's not permanent. And it means that the person who has granted you this temporary gift can take that gift back at any time, which we are doing right now. You had temporary asylum. It is no longer, you're no longer eligible for that temporary asylum. We're revoking your temporary asylum. Get out. Now, let's say you're here under these provisions of temporary asylum. Let's say coming into the country illegally is a speeding ticket. Now, if you get a speeding ticket and you're going 10 miles over the speed limit, the cop's got a judgment call. He can give you a ticket. He can let you go. Usually you're going to get a ticket these days, right? If you're going 50 miles over the speed limit in a school zone, well, that's different. Are you still just guilty of a civil offense? I mean, all you were doing was speeding. But I think at that point, the cop can add a lot more onto your ticket, like reckless driving, reckless endangerment, and on and on and on. So the offense itself, Abby Phillip might like to say that it's a civil offense, but it actually depends on the conditions under which you broke that law. All right, but let's stick with the speeding ticket analogy for a second. Let's say it's just a 10 miles an hour over the speed limit, and the police gives you a speeding ticket. Well, that speeding ticket means that you've got to pay a fine or you've got to appear in court, sometimes both, depending on the jurisdiction you're living in. What happens if you don't show up? What happens if you don't come in for your court date? Well, now you're a fugitive, aren't you? You had a failure to appear. And depending on the judge, depending on your record, depending on what else you've done, depending on whether you've done this before, there could be a warrant out for your arrest. But wait, it was just a civil offense. It's not a criminal offense. Well, yeah, but you see, your behavior in association with that civil offense actually escalates the situation. And you bet your ass you're now a criminal. Criminal to, in some cases, very serious degrees, depending on other circumstances. So you break the law for our border and you enter the country illegally. Abby Phillip would have you think that that's just a civil offense. Okay. Well, what if you didn't appear for one of your hearings? What if you didn't check in with the Department of Homeland Security? What if while you were here, you started working illegally? What happens if while you were here, you obtained through identity theft somebody else's social security numbers so that you could work in this country illegally? Or what happens if you registered to vote when you got your illegal immigrant driver's license in the state that you're living in? What happened if you actually voted? What happens if you tried to get federal benefits that you are not eligible for, but because you have that fake social security number, you said, what the hell, let's just get some social security disability payments, or maybe let's get some welfare and Medicaid? What if you did all of those things while you just broke that civil offense of being in the country illegally? You're a criminal. I'm sorry. But that's what breaking the law does. It turns you into a criminal. Whether it's a civil offense or not, you're still a criminal. Now we're just negotiating with words and semantics. And Abby Phillip thinks that she made a great debating point there with Scott Jennings, but Scott just shoved it off like he does so well, saying, yeah, we're talking about 11 million people here that broke the law because of the last president. This president said he was going to deport them. He's doing that. Any other questions? Well, and then one of the Democrats on the panel actually did have something to say about this issue. He did have something to say about our laws, about our policies, about the tariffs. One Democrat stood up, confronted Scott Jennings, and was ready to debate. Watch.
I worked in a factory, went to factory in 1989. We made radial passenger tires for cars. I worked there with my dad, 8 of my uncles, and 12 of my cousins. I was a union steward there. That plant now sits in China because you can import small radial passenger tires pretty cheap because of our failed trade policy in this Democrat's opinion. Donald Trump will use that to say that we need to fight China. We need to bring those jobs back to America. Feel a little pain for a little bit, but I'm rejiggering this whole thing to make it work for you. That's what he's betting on against the pain of what people are really going to feel. And this is what will be determined in 18 months, to your point, Abby, is the American people will decide which one of these philosophies actually is true.
That's 100%
Exactly
true.
right.
I mean, we'll have
we all agree. We all agree.
Exactly right. Let's just hope that
The Mexican redneck brought everybody together.
I wish I could show you fireworks. I wish I could show you all the disagreement. I wish I could show you the Latino Mexican Democrat who came in there, guns a-blazing, to rip apart the immigration policy, the border security policy, and the tariff policy. But the fact is, that's right. We agree. I mean, these are things that we always used to agree upon. Even when we didn't agree with the solution, we agreed on some basic facts. Manufacturing jobs have left. They've left because we were promised that all of these trade agreements would be great for our economy and it wouldn't affect jobs. And well, all those people who said that were wrong. And it devastated communities, and it devastated families, and it devastated industries, and it made rich people richer. And now those very same people who promised us it wouldn't affect any jobs in this country are now telling you that the tariffs are going to affect jobs in this country. But they were wrong then. What makes us think they were right today? And Donald Trump may have played this wrong. We won't know for another year or so when it all starts to sort out. But whatever we've been doing hasn't helped any of those manufacturing jobs. They're gone. And the only way to get them back, if someone else has a better idea, let's hear it. But in the meantime, this seems to be a solution. And there's no debate about that. Let's just let's just watch the policy play out. I mean, that was a great moment. Not great for cable television, I guess, because they thrive on conflict. But you had Scott Jennings, a Bush-era Republican, and you had this guy, Chuck Rocha, a Latino liberal Democrat, and they basically said, yeah, we agree. What's the problem? That's it. Let's just see what happens.